Welcome to Healing Starts Here with Mary Greensmith and Dee Nicole. We believe that healing is bigger than any one modality, technique, or philosophy. It begins with curiosity. It begins with connection. It begins with a willingness to explore what is possible. Join us as we dive into conversations about energy, vitality, homeopathy, intuition, nature, personal growth, and the many ways people around the world are finding their path to greater well-being. Together, we'll meet fascinating guests, explore different healing traditions, and ask the questions that help us better understand ourselves and each other. Because every healing journey starts somewhere, and healing starts here.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. And this is really exciting. Dee, Nicole, and myself are starting this new podcast. Healing Starts Here. I mean, what a fantastic title. Dee, what does this mean for you?
What inspires me about this name is that it opens the door. Because where does healing start? It starts with exploration. It starts with conversation. It starts with a willingness to talk about things, a willingness to look at things. And so I'm hoping that as we step forward and bring forward different kinds of information and different people and different conversations, that our listeners will hear something that they really identify with, that inspires them, that talks to that part of their humanity where healing comes in.
Such a lovely way to do it. And what I'm really excited about is we have not planned this. We have not sorted out this is where we want to go, because we are both people who like to just go with the flow, aren't we? We like to see where it takes us. We like to see what it brings in. And we feel that as few rules as possible will give us the biggest opportunity to explore this topic. And what I love about, I'm so excited about working with you, because we are from quite different backgrounds. We are from different setups. So I thought it might be nice for this first podcast just to be actually introducing ourselves so that people can understand where we are coming from, what has driven us, and where we are now, and where we might want to go in the future. Does that make sense to you?
I think that sounds really fun. Can I ask a question before you do that, though? Because I'm very interested, and it's probably the beginning of introducing yourself.
Okay.
Truly. But what is it that made you, guys, Mary is an extremely experienced podcaster. What is it that inspired you, that made you want to reach out in this direction of having these newer conversations?
Meeting you, Dee. What can I say about that? Okay, so I'm not really a very experienced podcaster. I do podcasting in order to help other homeopaths or practitioners experience talking with other people, and I just do whatever I can to help that happen. But when I first did a podcast with you, Dee, I just thought to myself, how can I work with Dee more? And so I thought, what could I suggest that would make that happen? And the reason, Dee, why I want to work with you more is because your energy is just so special. And it means that I want to get to know you more. I want to find out what makes you tick. I want to work with you on your health journey, not for you, but the people that you help. I want to see where you're going. I'm very intrigued by your life, your background, your qualifications. And of course, what brought us both together was that we both trained as homeopaths, and that we have got, and that is about all we have got in common. And for me, it's so interesting because, okay, what brought me to homeopathy and what brought you to homeopathy were completely different things. And now, the question I ask myself is, okay, why? Why did I do that? And I think I'm saying to myself now, I probably did that so that I could meet Dee and see what else is out there. Because when we start talking about where we've come from, you will see that my path is very, very narrow. And you have so much experience elsewhere in the healing modalities. Does that answer your question?
I mean, yeah, but I had no idea. um, at least not on that level. I'm kind of blown away and honored and truly humbled by everything that you've said. But one of the things that I love is you say your path is narrow, and you worked as a homeopath, guys, which is absolutely energy healing. But there is a place for me in which there's actually more than that, and maybe you just don't realize, and maybe it's just a connection that's bringing that out for you. But let me ask these questions because they're gonna show it to us. But
Okay.
I know that you have loved working with gardens and horses. Will you tell us about that?
Yeah, yeah. I was very lucky. Well, very lucky. I was brought up in a family that was very traditional. My mother was a nurse. My father was a clergyman,
Mm.
and my father worked the whole time and strongly believed that children should be seen and not heard. And my mother went out to work in order for us to have ponies and horses. And so from the age of 8, I had a job. I used to work at the local riding school, earning extra money so that I could pay to go to competitions on my little pony. Because my parents weren't available, I would then hitch a ride with anybody else that had a pony. I was so determined to be a rider. So I've been riding horses for many, many years. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, apart from horses. And and that was really my life. And all I could ever think was, well, actually, I just want to live in the mountains and ride my horse. And I don't really need people, and I don't really need money, and I don't really need work. And in fact, I don't really need a family. I just want to be self-sufficient. I want to grow my own food, and that was all I could see in the life. And I think from that age, what it was that I hated the fact. And my mum used to say, they used to sit me down and say, you can be a doctor, you can be a nurse, you can be a vet, or you can be a solicitor. I Well, I don't really want to be any of those things. Well, I would be a vet, but actually I wasn't quite clever enough. I was far too, out in the outside having fun. Um, and so I rebelled against everything that they thought their values effectively. I mean, health, for instance. My mum worked in a theatre with all the surgeons, and she used us kids as experiments. Oh, you need this operation, you need this operation. And I just needed to get away, and all I wanted to ever do was go and be on my own in the mountains. So I think I was extremely naive, but I had no desire to learn about the rest of the world at that point. My desire was just to escape the restrictions, the rules of life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, amazing. So the reason I asked about those two things in particular, about the horses and the gardening, and it brought forward from you this incredible commitment to sovereignty and self-sufficiency, which are buzzwords now, and probably were not
No.
when you were growing up. But the reason I asked about those is because those are things that are deeply connected to nature. They are places where the principles of working with energy that are so human, that are so natural, right? A lot of times we say energy medicine or energy healing, and it becomes this foreign concept, but really it's 100% human. Right. And so I was saying that almost in response to you saying, all I've done is study homeopathy, when really, because you're a human being,
Yeah.
you've actually been working with energy your entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the animals and the vegetables and connecting to the earth and even wanting the solitude from the conventional norm allows you to lean in deeper to those areas, whether you're doing it consciously or not. That's why I asked.
Okay, and I absolutely agree with you. And my daughter asked me a few months ago, why did we never go to the doctors? Why did we never have, antibiotics or anything? Nobody had actually ever said to me they were bad. I just had this inner feeling that our bodies could heal themselves. And when the kids would knock themselves or bang themselves or whatever, and I would be explaining, no, you've got little men in there that have got toolkits and they're busy hammering away and making you butter. And and she says that really stuck with her for years and years and years. But it was just something I had never, my family didn't believe any of that. They believe that there's a tablet for everything, and you
Yeah.
just take more tablets, and that's fine. And they still believe that, and that's absolutely fine. And I'm really happy that they can choose their way to live, and I can choose mine. But you're so right that energy is everything to me, and anybody that knows horses and knows working with horses understands that relationship. That is a completely different language. And to me, that's what energy healing is. It's
Yeah.
just a different language.
And it's funny because I don't know if it's different or if it's an extension of. Yeah. I think it's just different than the one that we've been empowered to use and say words. For example, when I think of the energetic system, we are often taught in school that we have the five senses, right? You hear, you smell, you taste, blah, blah, blah. But for every one of those senses, there's an energetic, and I would even use the term psychic sense to match it, where you are seeing even further, where you are listening even deeper, right? Sometimes when someone speaks to you and you hear their words, but you actually hear what's underneath their words, right? We've all had these experiences. So it's as though those things that we've been taught are just the beginning of what's possible in our skill set. And I like to think of it that way, as just the beginning rather than different. Yeah. And so maybe the mindset of your family, and I will tell you, my mother was a nurse as well, and absolutely it was medicine. um, that in the conventional way, but maybe that's just the beginning. Mm.
Yeah. No, I like idea.
I don't know. Now that I've said it out loud, I don't know if I love it as the beginning, but they definitely interweave. For me, there's not a difference. I guess I'll say it that way. There's not
Yeah.
a difference. We are always talking about the same thing. It's just about how we're talking about it. And and understanding that actually allows us to connect to people in the way where they can hear us. When we start to lean into how did they just say that? Right, I can take it to the other extreme. Let me tell you, my sister is extremely religious. She's very Christian. Um, and and it's a different paradigm than I've adopted for myself, where I don't necessarily follow a particular religious practice. I don't rule anyone out. I don't have any problems with anybody's belief system and what helps them navigate life, but it's a different thing. And more recently, right, in our adult years. More recently, when I've understood that when she says, God told me to do this, that she's leaning into her intuition,
Yeah.
that she's leaning into the energy. So maybe we're saying the same thing, just differently. And
It's
what if we didn't get triggered when we heard the other one?
Yeah, but it's a really good point, isn't it? And when you do courses and life coaching and things like that, and some people call it spirit, some people call it God, and we have to say whatever it is that you call it, then that's okay. And as you say, it's the same for each of us. But interesting, look how many similarities we've found already. So tell me a little bit about your childhood and early influences. You've mentioned that your mum was a nurse.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, I am one of those people who does not remember a ton about childhood. Yeah. My mother was a nurse. She was a labor and delivery nurse. And, um, I was familiar with the word dilation before, before most people are. Um, and and she's very cautious and follows the rules. And when I was growing up, she would have never, she didn't get on an airplane until I was in my 20s and I was living far away, and she had to in order to come see me. Right? She loved me enough to do that. But what really was the biggest influence throughout my younger years was training as a dancer. And I didn't start that till I was about 7. But that became the thing that I always went back towards. The way you talk about your horses is a similar energy that I felt with dance. And it's not. I didn't necessarily set out with a goal of, I'm going to be a backup dancer for Beyonce, or I'm going to do company work and dance with Elvin Ailey. I didn't necessarily have any of that. I just knew that that was the place that I felt the most like myself. And it's a place where you walk in a room and, as you grow, you're walking in with the same people, and those become your friends, they become your family, but you're not spending 4 hours talking to one another. Right? You're spending 4 hours communicating on a different level where your bodies are moving, where you're all leaning into yourself and opening and allowing others to be a part of that. And it becomes this bigger energy of moving space. And I could do a whole thing about it, but it was dance for me. That's where I was all the time. I went there first, and then I did my schoolwork. um, and it was that taught me so many things about energy and people. Because when I say we walked in that room and we didn't use words to communicate, one thing about our bodies is they're always honest. So I was accustomed to talking with people who communicated on this level where there was always truth. There was no covering things up with words to make us feel better, to have it sound softer. It was always our energy in the room. And I think that is what laid so much ground for every path and choice I've made ever since.
It's really interesting, and it explains so much. And you're absolutely right about that passion as a child takes you where you're going to go in the future, doesn't it? But since then, you've done so many different modalities, haven't you? And so many different trainings. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. So I had a career as a professional dancer. And when it was time for me to step away from that career, which was one of the hardest things I ever did, I found myself working in conservation, in environmental conservation. And it's work that I love, and I love the planet, but I was sitting at a desk and in an office and, in a cubicle without walls. And it's the environment that really works for some people and really doesn't for others. And I was one of those people who it didn't. And so I found myself in this place of saying, I need to figure out how to be who I am. honestly. And so I just started trying things. And I started at a place that was called the Northwest Psychic Institute. And I didn't even realize the name at the time. It was in this old martial arts building. And there was a woman there who taught the martial arts. And then she also taught these other classes. And I think the first class I took was about angels. And the really funny part about that to me is that at the time, I don't anymore. I just mentioned it. At the time, I was very triggered by things that were associated with religion because of the rules. You and I actually do have that part in common also.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I actually just went to the class and learned, I realized it didn't actually have to be connected to that. And the way it was presented to me, that was just a human way of trying to understand things that are more universal. And so I started there and I moved on to taking Reiki classes. And I will tell you that I've gone through Reiki training from beginning to master 4 times over. And part of the reason for that was one of the first classes I took in it wasn't very good. It was terrible, actually.
Mm.
And and while I knew that the class itself was not any good, I also still felt connected to something and I wanted to understand it. I wanted to learn more. So I did it again. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, now I get it. This teacher's saying it in a way that I understand. And it's so much deeper um, and universal than we realize. So that's where I started with trainings. And from there, it was just experiment, play, and more than anything, when I step into those spaces with people, that's where I would find that same energy that I found when I was dancing. So it was just a different expression of that energy that felt like the core level of me.
It's so interesting. Just hearing how we get to explaining the words and what I love about the way that you explain things is that it is all about, it doesn't matter the words almost, does it? Because it's the feeling that counts and that energy. So what are you thinking that we can do with this podcast? Who is it that we should be talking to and why?
Oh, for one, because we both connect in the field of homeopathy, um, I think that we are talking to the homeopaths and I think we are talking to the energy healers because for so long I have felt like there has been a strong, hard line between these two groups of people saying, you know, I'm a homeopath, we're energy healers, but we don't actually talk about that part. We want to represent ourselves more aligned with conventional medicine, even though we're not that, but we're going to try and represent ourselves that way. We're going to try and move forward with research, even though we acknowledge the mechanism of action for homeopathy can't be measured. We've got this group that's been hardcore about don't do other energy healing modalities. And here's the thing, we all do, at least most of us,
Yeah,
whether we're conscious of it or not. And
yeah.
we've got the energy healers who don't have a clue what homeopathy is. And I think beginning to bring these groups together, realizing that we are actually working on the same thing is going to be amazing. Also really hoping this will be a space for people to just learn about things, about different possibilities, about different modalities, about what's out there, because I am a firm believer that there is not just one thing that is part of our healing. Yeah, when I think about it this way, that if we look at plants as medicine, there is a difference between trying to pull out one alkaloid, one compound, one element of that plant and having someone take it, as opposed to having them work with the plant as a whole with all its parts working together. Yeah, and I think that's what we've done in the world of healing, of say, oh, it's only Reiki, it's only homeopathy, it's only your tablet, when really these things have always historically worked in tandem. There's been things that are right at one time, there's been things that support one another, and I'm hoping to bridge that gap. But tell me from your side, what are you hoping for?
I'm hoping to learn and meet lots of other people with lots of different experiences because I have so much to learn, and I have actually been quite resistant to opening that door. And why have I been resistant? I don't know. I can't answer that. But I have only done homeopathy. I haven't done any other I mean, I've done life coaching and I've done a bit of trauma. I've done things that would help my clients um, sleep better or be less anxious. So, a little bit of hypnotherapy just for exercises for that area. But I don't know what's out there. And I feel like I'm 15 again, not knowing what people did in offices because I had never walked into an office before.
Mhm.
And I feel like there's a big world out there, and I'm interested, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what there is for me. And I know that you're absolutely right that everything that I do and think is an energetic level and a drive. And I know that I see the world differently than the people that I'm surrounded with, apart from, of course, my lovely team of homeopaths. But you were talking about actually you have yourself volunteered in Africa and different places like that. So tell me what did you come away with from that experience? What did it open up for you?
So many things. So you're talking specifically, and that was within homeopathy.
Okay.
Actually, there were two projects happening at the same time. One was related to homeopathy, and one was related to um, community development for a group of young boys, personal development for these young boys through sport, actually, through football, through soccer, whatever we're calling it. Um, but but Homeopathy for Health in Africa, an amazing organization. When I went there, there were several things that came. For one, I deeply connect to the earth, right? And still, when I walked onto Africa for the first time, I understood something that I hadn't understood before. And I say this as someone who is categorized as an African American person whose history goes goes back to this place. Is I walked on that land and I understood a richness, an energy that I had not met. And what's interesting about it is when we work in places like that, one of the things I excel in working people with is an existential crisis. But when we walk into communities like that, nobody has capacity for an existential crisis. Things are simple. The problems are simple. The problems are survival related. They're not, um, how am I going to be a big influence in the world, sort of thing, or how am I going to let out my gift? It's how am I going to be present today in a healthful way? And so, in doing that, it showed me so many things that I think are constantly and continually settling into my system about how I understand health and people and and that core level of humanity that runs through us all. I don't know if I answered your question because I just got talking about it. I lost track.
You opened up so many more questions. So let me just ask you one more question. On your journey, on your varied journey, and because I know that you've traveled and moved quite a bit, has there been one particular person or encounter during those journeys that has stayed with you, that is really important for you?
I mean, there's so many. I say there's so many because what immediately flashes into my mind when you ask me that question is every last one of my teachers. And that's not just the people that I sign up and train with and have a, here's my money, teach me something sort of exchange. It's everyone who has showed up for me in the world, be it as a colleague or as a client, that has brought forward a lesson that I would not have otherwise experienced. And truly, I've spent a considerable amount of time teaching classes in energy healing. But here's the thing, even when I walk in as the teacher, I never walk in with the mindset that I'm the teacher. I walk in that these students are my teacher. They're going to teach me what they need. They're going to teach me what the world needs right now in order to allow us all to live a little bit happier, a little bit healthier. And so I could tell you about the person I regard as my first spiritual teacher, who would not regard himself that way at all. He was an acupuncturist who I went to see, when I was in college, and I was in university for dance, pursuing a degree in dance, and my body started breaking down. And he was the person who really took me to new levels. I could tell you about the Maori healers who, out of New Zealand, have brought traditions and richness to me that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten. I have so many sound bites playing in my head. I guess the answer, Mary, is I can't boil it down. I can't give just one experience because it is a lifetime of experiences. It is everyone who has walked beside me, everyone who I've encountered, my teachers who I honor, and their teachers who came before.
So what's really exciting for me is that this podcast can bring these people together and can get us all talking and get us all understanding each other a little bit about each other's experience of energy healing. I am so excited.
I am too. And I think just what we've discovered in this conversation, at least what I've discovered, is that it's going to be for everybody. Because you're coming and saying, I don't know anything, even though I'm not sure that's true. But you're saying, I don't know anything. And I'm saying, well, I have this body of experience, but I have so much more to learn. Yeah. And so it's open for everybody at every level. And it's just conversation to get us to the door of where things start.
And that is just a beautiful place for us to finish our first podcast. And because we've got so many questions to go forward. So thank you so much for just having this introductory conversation, Dee. I have really, really enjoyed it, and I'm so looking forward to doing lots more.
I am too. I'm excited to learn more about you, more about the world, and to welcome in so many voices.
We look forward to seeing you all again as well. So thank you very much for joining us. I am so excited to be beginning this journey with you. I'm looking forward to getting to know you, and I hope that you will send us your questions and some ideas of the things that you would like us to be exploring.
Thank you for spending this time with us on Healing Starts Here. We hope today's conversation has inspired you to explore, reflect, and trust your own unique healing journey. Remember, there is no single path to well-being, only the one that feels right for you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who may need to hear it. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep exploring what's possible. Because every healing journey starts with a single step, and healing starts here.